जय श्री श्री गुरु गौरांगधर गिरिधारी श्री श्री राधा विनोद बिहारी जू की जय। श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन जू की जय। नित्यालल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपार अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्रील गुरुदेव की जय। नित्यालल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपार अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्यालल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपार अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार श्रील भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
Avirbhav Mahamahotsav Titi Srila Prabhupada A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Ki
Jai.
And Nand Otsav Ki
Jai.
Okay,
Jai.
go on.
Nityala Pravishta 128th Vyas Puja.
128 what?
128th Vyas Puja.
Vyas, oh.
I just no.
Yeah, okay.
Jai.
By the way, what you were telling the other day, I calculated it, of that Shraman Maharaj.
Yeah.
So he was 14 years old in 1946. And that's when he joined, you said, at the same time when Gurudev joined.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So that means that when he joined, from 1946, 56, 66, so approximately 23 years he was with Param Gurudev.
Wow.
Because in 69, that's when he departed. 69 or 68, I keep forgetting. Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Jai.
Okay.
Jai. Nityalala Pravishtam Vishnupar Ashutara Shata Shishmachula Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityalala Pravishtam Vishnupar Ashutara Shata Shishmar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityalala Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Shila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityalala Pravishta Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nityalala Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Srila Baladev Vijibhushan Prabhu Ki Jai. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Narottam Srinivas Shamananda Prabhu Trai Ki Jai. Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Par Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shard Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrind Ki Jai. Naam Achay Shri Haridas Thakur की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदत्त गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। जय श्री नंद महोत्सव की जय। श्री नंद बाबा की जय। श्री यशोदा मैया की जय। श्री वासुदेव महाराज की जय। श्री देवकी देवी की जय। श्री रोहिणी देवी की जय। श्री दाऊ भाई बलदेव प्रभु की जय। जय श्री रसेश्वरी श्री विश्वभानु नंदिनी श्रीमती राधा ठाकुरानी की जय। सर्व ब्रजवासी गण की जय। जय श्री गोकुल महावान की जय। श्री मथुरा धाम की जय। जय श्री Srila Prabhupada's 128th Vyas Puja Maha Mahotsav ki jai. All the celebrations going on all over the world for Srila Prabhupada's Vyas Puja ki jai.
Jai. Millions and millions of devotees glorifying Srila Prabhupada ki
jai. Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande
Hari Hari Bol. Sing Gurvastakam. Samsaradava Nalalidhaloka Tranayakaruna Gana Ganatvam Samsaradava Nalalidhaloka Tranayakaruna Gana Ganatvam Samsaradava Nalalidhaloka Tranayakaruna Gana Ganatvam
Samsaradava Nalalidhaloka Tranayakaruna Gana Ganatvam
Praptasya Kalyana Gunarnavasya Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda
Praptasya Kalyana Gunarnavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda
Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nritya Gita Vaditra Madhyan Manasura Sena
Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nrita Gita Varitra Madhyan Manasura Sena
Romanshakam Pasrutaranga Bhajo Bande Guru Sri Charanarvindam
Romanchakam Pashutaranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam
Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Shri Vigraharat Ananityanana Shingara Tanamandira Marjanado
Vigraharadhana Nityanana Shringaratan Mandira Marjanado
Yuktasya Bhaktam Chaniyunjatopi Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda
Yuktashta Bhaktamscha Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam
Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Chaturvida Sri Bhagavat Prasado Sadhana Triptam Hari Bhakta Sangha
Chaturveda Shri Bhagavat Prasado Swadvana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha
Kritaiva Triptim Bhajada Sadaiva Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda
Kritvaiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda
Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Shri Radhika Madhava Yara Para माधुर्यलीला पुनरुपनाम्ना
Radhika Madhavayorapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupanamna
Shri Radhika Madhavayorapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupanamna
Shri Radhika Madhavayorapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupanamna
Pratikshana sadhanalolupasya Bande Guru Sri Charanaravinda
Pratikshana Swadhanalolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Bande Guru Sri Charanaravinda Bande Guru Sri Charanaravinda
Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Nikunja Yuno Ratikelisi Jai Yayali Viduktira Peksha Niya
Nikunjayona Ratikelisiddha Yayale Viruktirapekshaneya
Tatra Didakshad Atti Vallabhasya Bande Guru Sri Charanaravinda
Tatrate Daksharati Vallabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Bande Guru Sri Charanaravinda Bande Guru Sri Charanaravinda
Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Sakshad Hari Tena Samasta Shastrai Ruktastatha Bhavyata Eva Sadapi
Shakshatharitena Samasta Shastra Yuktasta Bhaktanshchane Yunjat
Sakshad Harite na samasta shastra ruktastatha yata eva sadabhi
Shakshatharitena Samasta Shastra Yuktasta Bhavyata Eva Sadhi
Kintu prapoya priya eva tasya Bande Guru Sri Charanaravinda
Kintu Prabhorya Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Bande Guru Sri Charanaravinda Bande Guru Sri Charanaravinda
Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Yasya prasadana Bhagavat prasado Yasya prasada Nagati Guthopi
Yasya prasadar Bhagava prasado Yasya prasada Nagati Kutopi
Yasya prasada Bhagavat prasado Yasya prasada Nagati Kutopi
Yasya prasadar Bhagavat prasado Yasya prasada Nagati Kutopi
Jayam stuvam stasya yashastri sanyam Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda
Jayam Suvam तस्य यस्यास्त्रि सान्तान् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
Bande Guru Sri Charanaravindam Bande Guru Sri Charanaravindam
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
Bande Guru Sri Charanaravindam Bande Guru Sri Charanaravindam
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva
जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा
Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva
जय गुरुदेवा 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 जय गुरुदेवा
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
जय प्रभुपादा 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 जय प्रभुपादा
Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada
जय जगत गुरु शिल प्रभुपादा जगत गुरु शिल प्रभुपादा
Jaya Patit Pavan Srila Guru Deva Patit Pavan Srila Guru Deva
जय पतित पावन शिल गुरुदेवा पतित पावन शिल गुरुदेवा
Jaya Patit Pavan Srila Prabhupada Patit Pavan Srila Prabhupada
जय पतित पावन शिल प्रभुपादा पतित पावन शिल प्रभुपादा
Jaya Gurudev 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 Gurudev
जय जय गुरुदेव 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 गुरुदेव
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada
जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय प्रभुपाद
Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Parampara Guru Parampara
गुरु परंपरा गुरु परंपरा परंपरा गुरु परंपरा
Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Parampara Guru Parampara
गुरु परंपरा गुरु परंपरा परंपरा गुरु परंपरा
Jaya Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari
जय सच्चिनंदन जय गौरा हरे सच्चिनंदन जय गौरा हरे
Jaya Nityananda Ram Jaya Nityananda Ram Nityananda Ram Jaya Nityananda Ram
जय नित्यानंद राम नित्यानंद राम नित्यानंद राम जय नित्यानंद राम
Jaya Nitai Jaya Go Jaya Nitai Jaya Go
जय নিতাই জয় গৌর জয় নিতাই জয় গৌর
জয় নিতাই জয় গৌর জয় নিতাই জয় গৌর
জয় নিতাই জয় গৌর জয় নিতাই জয়
নিতাই গৌর
গৌর
হরি বল হরি বল হরি বল হরি বল
নিতাই গৌর হরি বল হরি বল হরি বল হরি বল
নিতাই গৌর হরি বল হরি বল হরি বল হরি বল
নিতাই গৌর হরি বল হরি বল হরি বল হরি বল
জয় শ্রী কৃষ্ণ চৈতন্য প্রভু নিত্যানন্দ শ্রী কৃষ্ণ
চৈতন্য প্রভু নিত্যানন্দ
শ্রী কৃষ্ণ চৈতন্য প্রভু নিত্যানন্দ
শ্রী কৃষ্ণ চৈতন্য প্রভু নিত্যানন্দ
শ্রী অদ্বৈত গদাধর শিবসারি গৌর ভক্ত বৃন্দ
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 জয় শ্রী কৃষ্ণ চৈতন্য প্রভু নিত্যানন্দ শ্রী
শ্রী কৃষ্ণ চৈতন্য প্রভু নিত্যানন্দ
শ্রী অদ্বৈত গদাধর শিবসারি গৌর ভক্ত বৃন্দ
শ্রী অদ্বৈত গদাধর শিবসারি গৌর ভক্ত বৃন্দ
জয় শ্রী কৃষ্ণ চৈতন্য প্রভু নিত্যানন্দ শ্রী
কৃষ্ণ
কৃষ্ণ
চৈতন্য প্রভু নিত্যানন্দ
শ্রী অদ্বৈত গদাধর শিবসারি গৌর ভক্ত বৃন্দ
শ্রী অদ্বৈত গদাধর শিবসারি গৌর ভক্ত বৃন্দ
গৌর নিত্যানন্দ বল হরি বল হরি বল
নিত্যানন্দ বল হরি বল হরি বল
গৌর নিত্যানন্দ বল হরি বল হরি বল
গৌর নিত্যানন্দ বল হরি বল হরি বল
বলো গৌর নিত্যানন্দ বল হরি বল হরি বল
গৌর নিত্যানন্দ বল হরি বল হরি বল
হরি বল হরি বল
হরি বল হরি বল
হরি বল হরি বল
হরি বল হরি বল
গৌর নিত্যানন্দ বল হরি বল হরি বল
গৌর নিত্যানন্দ বল হরি বল হরি বল
গৌর শ্রী অদ্বৈত 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 বল হরি বল হরি বল
হরি বল হরি
হরি
বল
বল হরি বল
হরি বল হরি
হরি
বল
বল হরি বল
গৌর শ্রী অদ্বৈত বল হরি 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 বল হরি বল
গৌর গদাধর বল हरि बोल हरि
गौर
बोल
गदाधर बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
गौर 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 गदाधर बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
गौर श्रीवास बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
गौर श्रीवास बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
गौर श्रीवास बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
गौर श्रीवास बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि
बोल
बोल
हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि
हरि
बोल
बोल हरि बोल
गौर श्रीनिवास बोल हरि बोल हरि
गौर
बोल
श्रीवास बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
गौर श्रीवास बोल हरि बोल हरि
गौर
बोल
श्रीवास बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
गौर भक्त वृंद बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
गौर भक्त वृंद बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
गौर भक्त वृंद बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
गौर भक्त वृंद बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
गौर भक्त वृंद बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
गौर भक्त वृंद बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
गौर भक्त वृंद बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
गौर भक्त वृंद बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरि बोल हरि बोल
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम राम हरे हरे
राम राम हरे हरे
राम राम हरे हरे
कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे
कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम राम हरे हरे
राम हरे हरे
राम हरे हरे
कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे
कृष्ण हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम राम हरे हरे
हरे राम राम हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम राम हरे हरे
हरे राम राम हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम राम हरे हरे
हरे राम राम हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम राम हरे हरे
हरे राम राम हरे हरे
हरि बोल हरि बोल
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 हरि बोल हरि
हरि
बोल
बोल हरि बोल
हरि 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 बोल bol, Hari bol,
Hari bol, Hari bol,
Hari bol, Hari bol,
Hari bol, Hari
Hari
bol.
bol, Hari bol, Hari bol.
Nitai Gaur Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol.
Nitai Gaur Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari
Nitai Gaur
bol.
Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol.
Nitai Gaur Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol.
Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol.
Nitai Gaur Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol.
Nitai Gaur Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol.
Nitai Gaur Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol.
Nitai Gaur Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol, Hari bol.
Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari bol. Nitai Gaur Premanande,
Hari Hari bol.
Nitai Gaur Premanande,
Hari Hari bol.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Shri Nandotsav ki
Jai.
Nandotsav Mahamahotsav ki
Jai.
Nanda Maharaj ki
Jai.
Yashoda Maiya ki
Jai.
Krishna Kanaiya ki
Jai.
Dauji Bhaiya ki
Jai.
Gopa Gopi Gan ki
Jai.
All the cows ki
Jai.
Vrindavan forest ki
Jai.
Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki
Jai.
Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki
Jai.
Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Krishna Janmashtami ki jai.
Jai.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamvitamscha. What is he doing online? What doing online, on phone? What is he doing? No, this is not work time. This is Katha time. Such an important day. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta स्वामिनिति नामने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारणे कुर्वघ्यं शिरसीधर्यं शक्त्यवेश स्वरूपिणे हरे कृष्णेति मंत्रेण पाश्चात्य प्राच्यतारणे विश्वाचार्य प्रवर्जाय दिव्य कारुण्यमूर्तये श्री भागवत माधुर्य गीत ज्ञान प्रदायने गौर श्री रूप सिद्धांत सरस्वती निषेवने राधा कृष्ण पदाम्बोज भृंगाय गुरवे नमः नमो विष्णुपदाय राधिकायै प्रियात्मने श्री श्रीमद्भक्ति वेदांत नारायणीते नामने श्री कृष्ण लीला कथने सुदक्षम औदार्य माधुर्य गुणैश्च युक्तम वरं वरेण्यं पुरुषं महान्तं नारायणं तं शिरसा नमामि त्रिदण्डिनां भक्तशिरोमणिं च श्रीकृष्णपादाब्जधृतैकहृदि चैतन्यलीलामृत सारसारं नारायणं तं सततं प्रपद्ये नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिरक्षक श्रीधर गोस्वामिनिति नामने देवं दिव्यतनुं सुचन्दवदनं बालार्कचेलाञ्छितं सन्द्रानन्दपुरं सदेकवर्णं वैराग्यविद्यां बुधिं श्रीसिद्धान्तनिधिं सुभक्तलसितं सारस्वतनाम्बरं वन्दे तं शुभदं मदेकशरणं न्यासीश्वरं श्रीधरम् वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो महाभजन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरतिसे नमः नित्यानन्दं नमस्तुभ्यं प्रेम आनंद प्रदायने खलो कल्मषनाशाय जानवपतये नमः पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तवतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम्. I just told no working on the phone. Otherwise, you can go out, you can go to the temple room, you can do your work. But if you've come here to be in this class on my spiritual master's appearance day, then you listen. You don't work on your phone. You understand? Put your phone to the side, not in front of you. You don't need your phone. पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तवतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम्. हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते. तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी Pranamami Hari Priye Jayatam Suruto Pangor Mama Mandamater Gati Matsarvasva Padam Bhojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Shrimad Ratnagar Singhasanasto Shrimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prishtalibhi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasarasaramvi Vamshivata Tatakstitaha Karshana Venu Swanayr Gopir Gopinata Shriyestunaha Bhaktya Vihin Aparadha Lakshay Kshiptashta Kamari Taranga Madhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Vrindai Tulsidebai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bolo Hare Krishna Bolo
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
So on this most holy day, most auspicious day, the day just after Lord Bhagavan Sri Krishna advented in this world. We observed yesterday that most sacred occasion and how we heard everything about how Krishna appeared in this world, why Krishna appeared in this world. But on this day, this is the first darshan that Nanda Maharaj had of his newborn son. Mother Yashoda was in Yogamaya and fell asleep after delivering the child, so she couldn't remember. She couldn't remember, is the child a male or female child? But when Vasudev carried Devaki Nandan, Krishna, to Gokul, and in the early morning hours he replaced that Krishna that he thought is his Krishna, and he replaced with a baby girl that he saw there. Yes, at the side of Mother Yashoda, a baby girl. So he took that baby girl back. But of course we know that when that baby girl was brought back and placed in the lap of Mother Devaki, then the child was crying, and the gatekeepers, they alerted Kamsa. Kamsa came running there, immediately stormed into the jail cell, and picked up the baby child as Mother Devaki was begging, please don't do. The prophecy said that it would be a boy, not a girl, like this. We cannot trust the demigods, he said. So then he took the child, and as he had done with all the other 6 children, he tried to smash the child on the stone floor. But what happened at that time? The child slipped out of his hands, flew up into the sky, manifested 8 arms with weapons in each as Durga. And then now, Durga told to Kamsa, "You fool, Durga. You fool, Kamsa. You think that you can defeat? No. The Supreme Lord has taken birth elsewhere. And he will very soon come to kill you. Don't worry." So, anyway, but in Gokul, none of this was going on, because who was there? Nandanandan Krishna, Yashoda Nandan Krishna, had taken birth from the womb of Mother Yashoda. Now, you know, Srila Bhaktivigyan Bharati Maharaj has a whole presentation about this. But first I have to offer my unlimited Dandavat Pranams on this day of Nanda Utsav, the day after Krishna Janmashtami. And this is when a huge festival was enacted by Nanda Maharaj. He became so overjoyed, and he wanted to distribute lakhs and lakhs of cows and calves and grains and gold and cloth and jewels, and profusely. So this day is a very, very happy day for all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas and all the devotees of Krishna, because this is the first day when everyone was able to have the darshan of baby Krishna. And everyone became so happy. Such an amazing description in Ananda Vrindavan Champu. But also on this day, many, many thousands of years later, to be exact, in 1896, on this very day, a very great personality also was born in Calcutta. Who is that? Our beloved Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we will talk about him, born to Gaur Mohan De, who was a pure devotee of Krishna also. And forget his mother's name. Do you remember? No, I can't remember right now. So he appeared on this day of Nanda Utsav Day, happiest day of the year for the Brijbasis, happiest day for them. And so Krishna's pastimes began in this world on this day, and this great personality, born as Abhay Charan De, to his father and mother who were Vaishnavas. And
Srila Prabhupada's mother's name was Rajani De. Rajani De.
Yes, Rajani De. Yes, now I'm remembering. Yes. So I'm first of all offering my, what can I say, my unlimited, without number. And that will take me many lifetimes to pay those obeisances, but that's okay. I can stay and pay obeisances to Prabhupada for many, many hundreds of lives, if that's what Prabhupada would be pleased by. But I really have to say that when I say my unlimited obeisances, yes, it is unlimited. There's no limit. Because how he came to save us. Not just me, everyone. how he came. What was his pastimes throughout his life? How did he end up doing what he did at the age of 70? You know, getting on the ship, crossing the ocean, all of this. I want to talk about this today. So I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams at his divine lotus feet and praying for his causeless mercy, that we can speak even just a few statements about his glories. I'm also offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams, my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs. That is Nityalila Pravishtom Vishnupad, Ashtatarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak, Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Ashtatarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I'm also offering my Dandavat Pranams to all of my Sri Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga. And I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and to all the Vaishnavis. And all of us are offering our unlimited Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and Rohini Devi and Shri Baladev Prabhu and Kanaya, Krishna Kanaya. Krishna Kanaya. So, first of all, I'm just going to read a few passages from the Ananda Vrindavan Champu by Srila Kavi Karnapur. So, after Yashoda and her family members fell asleep in the maternity room, then Hari cried beautifully like a newborn baby. His crying sounded like the Mahavakya Omkar, announcing the auspicious arrival of his pastimes. Omkar is a transcendental vibration that had previously emanated from the mouth of Lord Brahma. So when the ladies of Vrindavan heard the sweet sound of Krishna's crying, they woke up and they ran to see the Lord. And with the mellow of their matchless overflowing affection, they anointed his body. So now the natural fragrance of Krishna's body smelled just like musk. And after the ladies bathed Krishna in sweet ambrosia, he looked cleansed and beautiful. And then they smeared his body with fragrant sandalwood pulp. The presiding deity of the house sent a champak flower resembling the flame of a lamp into the maternity room to worship that ornament of the three worlds. Do you have the book online, this Ananda Vrindavan Champu in Russian? So with the strength of his little arms, delicate as the tender leaves of a tree, Krishna made all the lamps in the maternity room look like a garland of lotus flower buds. The ladies of Vrindavan, they saw baby Krishna like a blossoming flower made of the best of blue sapphires. That's how they saw him. Or, this is Kavi Karnapur, he always gives 2 or 3 different similes, analogies. Or they saw him like a newly unfurled leaf. of a tamal tree. And Krishna, he looked like a fresh rain cloud, decorated with the musk tilak of the goddess of fortune of the three worlds. Now the ointment of the greatest auspiciousness lined his eyes. He had natural kajal. His presence filled the maternity room with good fortune. And although a mere baby, Krishna had a head full of curly hair. Yes, did you know that? He had a whole head full of beautiful curly hair. To hide the unique signs on his hand, to hide them, which was what? The goat, the fish, the conch, etc. The Lord folded his delicate petal-like fingers into his lotus palm, like this, to hide. At that time, Krishna laid on his back with his eyes closed. So Mother Yashoda awoke amidst the joyous chattering of the elderly gopis. Now, leaning over the bed, she admired her gorgeous son. But upon noticing her own reflection on Krishna's body, she imagined it to be another woman. And thinking that a witch had assumed her form to kidnap Krishna, Yashoda became bewildered and yelled, "Get out of here! You go away!" And spontaneously she cried out to Nrsingadev to protect her precious son. Beholding Krishna's tender face, Yashoda showered tears of affection that looked like an offering of a pearl necklace. So right from the first moment, she's in anxiety for Krishna. That's her eternal mood. Worrying and anxiety for Krishna. Now, how did Yashoda see Krishna's body? Here's the amazing description. Yashoda saw Krishna's body as a mound of dark blue musk, softer than butter, softer than the butter that is churned from the milk ocean, overflowing with nectar. His charming body appeared like the foam of milk, but being dark blue in color, it seemed the foam was full of musk juice. Then, admiring the supremely delicate form of her son, Yashoda worried about his safety and feared the touch of her body might hurt his tender body. See? Worry, worry, worry. So as she leaned over the bed, Yashoda bathed Krishna with the milk dripping from her breasts. Now the elderly gopis, now they instructed Yashoda how to caress the baby in her lap and affectionately push the nipple of her breast into Krishna's mouth to feed him. Why? Because she hadn't had a child. Yeah. So they're instructing her how to breastfeed the baby. So due to Yashoda's intense love, personified bliss flowed from her breasts as steady streams of milk. And when milk sometimes spilled out of Krishna's bimba fruit red lips onto his cheeks, then Mother Yashoda would wipe his face with the edge of her cloth. After feeding her son, Yashoda gazed affectionately at him in wonder. Now, here's how she saw him. She saw her child's body as made of dazzling blue sapphires. His mouth resembled a red bimba fruit. His hands and feet looked like exquisite rubies. Krishna's nails shone like precious gems. In this way, Yashoda thought her child was completely made of jewels. Then she perceived that his naturally reddish lips looked like banduka flowers, and his hands and feet resembled java flowers. His nails looked like malika flowers. Yashoda then thought, Krishna's whole body seems to be made of blue lotus flowers. He does not appear to be mine. And after thus deliberating within herself, Yashoda became stunned in amazement. Now the beautiful, soft, curly hairs on the right side of Krishna's chest, yes, Krishna had little, tiny, curly hairs on the right side of his chest. They resembled the tender stems of a lotus. Seeing the mark of Sri Vatsa on his chest, Yashoda thought it was breast milk that had previously spilled out of his mouth. So she tried unsuccessfully to remove these milk stains with the edge of her cloth. Then, struck with wonder, Yashoda thought this time, she thought that this must be the sign of a great personality. Then, observing the sign of Lakshmi, which is what? A golden line on the left side of Krishna's chest, Yashoda thought that a small yellow bird had made a nest amidst the leaves of a tamal tree. Could this be a streak of lightning resting on a rain cloud? Or could it be the golden streaks marking a black gold testing stone? Krishna's delicate, leaf-like hands and feet, glowing pink like the rising sun. They look like clusters of lotus flowers floating in the Yamuna. So sometimes Yashoda saw the dark curly blue locks of baby Krishna as a swarm of bumblebees surrounding his face. And intoxicated from drinking too much honey nectar, the bees just hovered in the sky. His thick, beautiful blue hair appeared like the dark night. The two lotus eyes of Krishna looked like a pair of blue lotus buds. His cheeks resembled two huge bubbles floating in a lake of liquefied blue sapphires. Krishna's attractive ears looked like a pair of fresh, unfurled leaves growing on a blue creeper. The tip of Krishna's dark nose appeared like the sprout of a tree, and his nostrils looked like bubbles in the Yamuna River, the daughter of the sun god. His lips resembled a pair of red java flower buds. Krishna's chin rivaled a pair of ripe red jambu fruits. Seeing the extraordinary beauty of her son fulfilled the purpose of her eyes and submerged Yashoda in an ocean of bliss. So now the elderly Brijbasi ladies, they addressed Brajaraj Nanda. What do you think they told him? They said, "Oh, most fortunate one, you fathered a son." Previously, Nanda Maharaj had felt deeply aggrieved over his long-standing inability to obtain a son. His heart was like a small lake that had completely dried up during a long hot summer. But when Nanda Maharaj heard of his son's birth, he felt as if the dry lake of his heart had been blessed with a sudden downpour of nectar. And the gentle sound of Krishna's voice removed all his grief and lamentation, and now he bathed in the rains of bliss. He swam in the ocean of nectar, and he felt embraced by the joyful stream of the celestial Ganga. Now, eager to see his son, Nanda's body thrilled with astonishment and waves of ecstasy as he stood outside the maternity room. So, because he had accumulated heaps of pious activities, it appeared that the king of Vrindavan was now shaking hands with the personification of pious deeds. Anxiously standing in the background, Yogamaya induced Nanda Maharaj to enter the maternity room. So yeah, he had to be induced by Yogamaya to enter the maternity room. So he rushed in to see his son, who was the personified seed of condensed bliss. And it seemed that all the auspiciousness of the three worlds now resided within Krishna, who is the original cause of everything. Nanda saw his son as a perfectly charming person. The kajal around Krishna's eyes looked like lines on a black creeper of beauty. And as the very embodiment of Nanda's good fortune, Sri Krishna bloomed like a beautiful flower in a garden of desire trees. So now, the aparajita flower is compared to the body of the Queen of Vrindavan. Her son is like the representative of the Upanishads that are compared to the fruit of the desire creepers. By seeing his glorious son, Nanda felt that he had attained happiness, he had attained perfection, and he had attained the fulfillment of all his desires. Meeting that embodiment of bliss overwhelmed Nanda with immeasurable satisfaction, and he stood motionless, stunned, his hair stood erect, and tears flowed from his eyes. He appeared like a person carved in stone, or a figure drawn in a painting. For some time, Nanda Maharaj remained in this semi-conscious state, like a sleeping man about to awaken. Now Upananda, Sunanda, and other relatives felt extremely joyful, while observing the best of the Brahmins perform the rites of purification for Krishna's birth. To ensure his son's welfare, Nanda Maharaj donated newborn calves to each and every Brahmana, thus turning their home into their homes, the Brahmins' homes, into abodes of Surabhi cows. And these cows had gold and silver plated horns and hoofs, and jeweled necklaces adorning their necks. In addition, Vrajapati Nanda filled the courtyard of their homes with hills of gold, jewels, and sesame seeds. While Nanda distributed charity, the Kamadhenu, touchstones, and desire trees, they lost their power to produce valuable items. Even the jewel-producing oceans lost their stock of jewels. And the goddess of fortune, the abode of lotuses, had but one lotus in her hand. The auspicious news of Krishna's wonderful appearance spread in all directions by word of mouth. Delight danced in the hearts of Nanda, his brothers Upananda and Sunanda, and all the other Gopas. The Gopas brought many varieties of delicious dairy products, such as milk, yogurt, butter, wet cheese, and hard cheese, in jewel-studded pots. The pots were tied to the ends of bamboo poles with jute straps and carried on their shoulders. Bedecked with many precious jeweled ornaments, the Gopas appeared very handsome. They dressed in beautiful yellow cloth, defeating the brilliance of lightning, and they held staffs topped with gold and jewels in their lotus hands. And as a great ocean spreads its waves in all directions, The birth of Krishna filled the Brajvasis with unbounded bliss. The Gopas and the Gopis enjoyed a grand festival by happily eating and by splashing each other's bodies with a mixture of yogurt, butter, milk, and condensed milk. So then it talks about the society girls for a few paragraphs. I'll just read a little of that. The society girls visiting Nanda Maharaj's house, they experienced more happiness than they had ever felt since their birth. Their minds saturated with joy and satisfaction. Hearing the delightful description of Krishna's birth carried away the chariots of their minds and made them abandon all other duties. They became possessed with the desire to see Krishna. So, these are the, probably young teenage girls in Braj. Because Krishna's gopis, some of them had not even been born yet. And some were just born. So they had to grow up with Krishna for the next, 10, 12 years. And the necklaces of these society girls, there were sparkling rubies hanging down, adorning them. Their diamond-studded armlets shone more beautifully than drops of crystal-clear water. Their jewel-inlaid golden bangles boasted unparalleled elegance. And for this unique festival, they took out some highly ornamental waist belts from their jewel boxes, and they tied them around their hips. The sweet jingling of the waist bells resting on their broad hips enhanced the beauty of these society girls. They attracted the minds of everyone with their bulky golden anklets, loosened hair braids, and graceful gait, which resembled the smooth gliding of swans. Their minds entered a state of enchantment as they gazed upon the captivating beauty of Krishna's transcendental body. To worship Krishna, they brought golden trays full of auspicious articles, such as fruits, flowers, yogurt, durva grass, uncooked rice, and jewel-bedecked lamps. They covered the offering plates with splendid yellow silk cloth, and they held them in their soft lotus hands. Their jeweled ankle bells vibrated pleasantly as they walked. Yes. So further description, but our time is going on. I especially wanted to read that about Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and his festival. So the last paragraph of this chapter, it's telling that this festival, which has been described in 5 paragraphs here, but now it brings this festival description to a close, and it says, the festival drowned the gopis in an ocean of joy. And after offering oil, vermilion, garlands, and utensils in charity to all the assembled gopis, Rohini, the wife of Vasudeva, asked them to bless Krishna. So upon completion of the sacrifice, Upananda and the other relatives felt constant happiness while taking their baths. Keeping the king of Vrindavan in the front, Nanda's relatives offered opulent cloth, jeweled ornaments, tambul, garlands, and sandalwood pulp to the guests. Then they humbly requested all in attendance to bless that wonderfully auspicious boy who had just appeared in Vrindavan. So that's the description of Krishna's appearance, and the next chapter tells of his killing Putana. I read Prabhupada's Krishna book this morning of that whole description. So in this way, the Nanda Otsav festival, it didn't just go on for one day, many days. And as you just heard, the amount of riches and gold and cows and everything, milk product, everything was just unlimited. It was unlimited. So we should think like this on this day, that this is the joyful day for all the Brijbasis, because all the Brijbasis love Krishna. Yes. And now, in Krishna's Bom Leela, he's actually taking the form of a baby, a newborn baby. And so all the Brijbasis completely fell in love with Krishna as a baby, and then as he's growing, and each one of his ages, they completely mesmerized by Krishna every single moment, every single day. So, like this, these 2 days of the year, the Krishna Janmashtami day, and then of course Nandotsav day, today, these are the unparalleled days of the joyfulness of all the Brijbasis. So we're remembering them and praying at their lotus feet, that one day we can be there in their association, serving all the gopis and doing service to all the Brijbasis. We're praying for this. So, as I already told, this is Srila Prabhupada's appearance day. He's born on this day. And what does that signify? It's something quite amazing. That the whole world will become joyful. Just like Nanda Maharaj's, the extreme joy that everyone felt. So, Srila Prabhupada appeared on such a glorious, happy day. So, who is this personality? Who is this divine personality? We know him, and all over the world now, devotees know him. You know, I was present with Srila Prabhupada on his Vyas Puja day in 1972 at New Vrindavan. Prabhupada came there to observe Krishna Janmashtami. He was there for an entire week, and we sat with Prabhupada in the temple room till midnight reading Krishna book. Prabhupada himself listening, intermittently a few kirtans, simple Hare Krishna mantra kirtans. So, and broke our fast after midnight. And then the next day was Srila Prabhupada's Vyas Puja festival. That was something very amazing to be at. And there were a couple of hundred devotees who had come from all directions. This was still the early days, 1972. The movement was growing rapidly, very rapidly. And so probably there was at least 200 or 300 devotees who had come from the east, from the west, even from Canada, they came down like that, and from the south. And Srila Prabhupada was brought, as he was each day, to the top of a hill. It's hilly there at New Vrindavan, and there's a hill right next to the temple, and a little bit steep, and you go up to the top, and the devotees had constructed a big, huge pavilion, kind of like what we have in Badger, like an open pavilion, with a big stage at one end, and Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasan. So Srila Prabhupada, he sat every night, and he was brought up the hill. But, one night, it was like, I think it was the second night of a 5 or 6 day, they called it Bhagavad Dharma Discourses. And they even advertised it. And so people also came who had seen advertisements in the local shops there. And And it was very mystical to be up on the top of that hill. And so they were driving Srila Prabhupada in a Volkswagen Bug or Beetle, you know, those old Volkswagen. And it was an old one too, even at that time it was old. And, you know, so they drove him up the hill, and then then they drove him back down. But the next day, Srila Prabhupada was waiting near the temple at the base of the hill for the car to come pick him up and drive him up. But the car wasn't coming. The car wasn't coming, but we were all standing surrounding Srila Prabhupada and looking at him. Just, you know, he wasn't speaking, he's just standing there. There are photos also of him standing there. He looked so sweet and sublime and unworried. But a couple of the devotees, Vishnu Jan Swami actually, he came and he began to apologize to Srila Prabhupada. Oh, Prabhupada, the car, it broke down, so we're making another arrangement right now. And so what they did was they had prepared a palanquin. And so each night, Srila Prabhupada was carried by the devotees on this palanquin up the hill. And then we would follow Prabhupada back down the hill, you know, most of us behind Prabhupada and looking at him in the moonlight. So that's one of my memories. But on the Vyas Puja day, yeah, I mean, there was a grand Guru Puja of Srila Prabhupada sitting on the Vyasasana. And then Srila Prabhupada also called on a few of his very senior disciples to speak some words, and they did. And then at the end of that, because, you know, like I said, they put up advertisements, and there were some non-devotee people who actually came out of curiosity. And, you know, everyone was worshipping Srila Prabhupada with paraphernalia, singing and dancing. And when Prabhupada took the microphone at the end and began to speak, then I remember that Srila Prabhupada, he gave some explanation to those local people that what is this ceremony? Why are all of these people worshipping me as I'm sitting here in this way? See? And Srila Prabhupada very humbly, he said, I am actually not worthy, I'm actually not qualified, but it is the duty of the disciple to glorify Sri Guru and to serve Sri Guru. So he kind of like said, don't mind, you know, to those people. And then he began to speak about Guru Tattva. Now, of course, we could actually probably find his lecture in all of Prabhupada's audios. I'm sure it's there. I should try to do that. I should try to find that so I can hear that once again. And then the next day, or actually I don't remember which day it was, but there were a number of devotees who had been waiting to receive Diksha, second initiation, from Srila Prabhupada. And so I think there was probably like 10, 12 devotees. And they wanted, Prabhupada wanted that they should be driven to the house where he was staying, a little bit of a distance from where the temple was at that time. And so when we came in the vehicle, it was a van, some big van, and we were all sitting in the back on the floor. And we got out of the van, and then the devotee who was kind of assisting, Prabhupada's personal assistant, came out to greet us. And then they said, you have to wait for Prabhupada, he's not quite ready yet. So we waited for some time, but then he came back and he said, actually it's not going to be possible today. but come tomorrow. So then the next day we also came. Now, one of the things that we were supposed to have was our Brahman threads. In those days, they didn't get Brahman threads already made from India and all of that. We used to make our own Brahman threads. You know from what? White colored kite string. You know, like a ball of thin string for kites. That's what we used to use, with 6 strings. And they taught us how to sit cross-legged and wind it around our knees and tie it like that. But we're at New Vrindavan, and there ain't no kite string. But we're told that we should make our Brahman threads to bring to Srila Prabhupada. So I just simply remember that the devotees were looking here and there, and some devotee brought sewing thread. You know, it's really thin sewing thread. So I made my Brahman thread out of sewing thread, right? So I remember that next day when we came, then we had to each go into Prabhupada's room one by one. He did not do like Gurudev used to do with a group of devotees, but one by one. So we're waiting. What? I don't know what you just said. Never mind. So, then it was my turn. This would be the first time that I was with Srila Prabhupada alone. And, you know, being 20, just going on 20 years of age at that time, a devotee for 2 years. So, but Prabhupada was like descended down from the Goloka Vrindavan planet. I mean, we felt in his presence that, and we felt, you know, quite like embarrassed, you know? Shy in his presence. But nevertheless, we felt very devoted to Srila Prabhupada. So what happened was, then I came into the room and Srila Prabhupada was sitting behind his, you know, like he usually sat at a floor level table. You know, that was like his desk. And he sat cross-legged behind the table. So I came in, and they had organized that each one of us would be carrying our Brahman threads that we made. We would each be carrying our Brahman threads to give to Srila Prabhupada, and then he would take that thread and perform the ceremony with us. So so when I paid my obeisances in front of him, on the other side of his floor desk, then when I sat up in front of him, then he said, "Do you have the mantra?" In other words, they were supposed to give us the sheet of paper that had the Gayatri mantras on it, but they had not given me the paper. So then Prabhupada said, "Go and bring." So again I had to go out of the room. "Nanda Kumar, Prabhupada wants the paper, you know. So they gave me the paper. Then I came back and again paid obeisances and sat down in front of Prabhupada's desk. So then, Srila Prabhupada, I handed him my Brahman thread, sacred thread. So then Prabhupada took it up in his hands and he started looking closely at it. I thought he must be counting to see if there's 6 threads. So I said, Srila Prabhupada, there are 6 threads there. But I think that's probably the first time that anybody brought him a Brahmin thread made of sewing thread. Anyway, then Srila Prabhupada rose up and he walked around his desk, and then he sat right next to me on my right side, knee to knee. And I had the paper in my hands, and then Srila Prabhupada showed me with his fingers how to count the mantras. He showed me with his fingers. And then he said, now you do like me. And then I had to copy him after that, like that. Then Srila Prabhupada placed the Brahmin thread across my shoulder. I had no shirt on. And then Srila Prabhupada showed me that, and then he said, now you repeat after me. And the way that he gave the mantra was word by word. All the mantras, word by word. Om, Om, Bhur, Bhur, Bhuva, Bhuva. So I had to repeat each word after Srila Prabhupada. So then after Prabhupada completed that, then he got up again and went back and sat behind his desk. And that was the completion. Prabhupada never gave any explanations. That's something quite new. Even Param Gurudev, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, he did not give. But Gurudev gave. He liked to give explanations. So, but like Param Gurudev, he said, the mantra is non-different than the deity of the mantra. So if you are chanting with devotion, gradually the deity will reveal himself. So then, Srila Prabhupada, after he sat down, and I'm still sitting there, and I have my palms folded like this, and then Prabhupada says, so, you have any questions? And I was like completely caught off guard, you know. No, Srila Prabhupada. He says, Acha, then you can go. Then I paid my obeisances, and I was feeling like a fool. That, I wish I would have had a question to ask to Prabhupada. So I got up, and then I went towards the door. But before I went out the door, I turned around and I said, Srila Prabhupada, thank you so much. And then he says, that is all right. Hare Krishna. So that's my direct reception of the Diksha mantras from Srila Prabhupada. And at that festival, I guess I'm just telling Prabhupada stories. At that festival, the temple, the New Vrindavan community of devotees, they also had a temple in the nearby city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It wasn't very far, driving from New Vrindavan. And they organized in the university campus, a university campus on the Pittsburgh University. I don't know what the name of the university was, but they organized to have a evening program there in which, you probably heard of this before, there was a rock band formed by the devotees. This is back in 71, 72. And they started to tour around the country singing and also performing. You know, like, did you ever hear of the play that was very famous in the 1960s called Hair? And they actually sang Hare Krishna mantra in that play, in that drama. Yeah. So that was around like 68, 69. Very, very famous. But what it was like a drama. Like a drama, and they had all these different musical songs and everything. Kind of rock and roll music during that drama. So the devotees had also put together a drama. And also accompanied by music, songs, and dance. And there was quite an ensemble of devotees, both girls and boys, Prabhupada's disciples. And the theme of the drama for the audience of many of the students came. And it was like, it was like in this hall that has the seats going down and the stage is at the bottom like that. So the devotees prepared to show that drama to Prabhupada. But as we were waiting for Prabhupada, everyone was seated down close up to the stage, as close as we could go. Then that rock group of devotees were up on the stage, and they were playing pretty loud, like, music, kind of a little bit like Jimi Hendrix type music. Did you ever hear that before? How he used to play the guitar, and there was a lot of feedback and all of that, And they had made a song. They had written a song, and the title of the song was Jagat Guru, Spiritual Master of the Universe. And so they were up on stage, and they had all the strobe lights like they used to do in the 60s. You've probably seen that, all these psychedelic strobe lights in the background, and they were singing another song. But then, as Srila Prabhupada was arriving, he actually had to walk, because this was like going down, down from the entranceway. He had to walk down. So all the devotees were waiting for Srila Prabhupada to arrive. And the group up on the stage were alerted. Prabhupada's arriving. He's going to enter any moment. So what did they do? They started playing this song, Jagat Guru, Spiritual Master of the Universe. And it was somewhat interesting. Srila Prabhupada's walking down the stairs, and they're playing like I said. Oh, put this back up. This thing fell out. It goes there. From the bottom up. You have to slide it up. Yeah. It doesn't stay so well, but anyway. Okay. So as Prabhupada's entering, and we're all kind of looking back up this, because we're all sitting down at the bottom, and we're looking back for Srila Prabhupada entering. And they started to play this song, and it went something like, Jagat Guru, Spiritual Master of the Universe, ring, 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 like. And Prabhupada's walking down, floating like a swan, and all the devotees are looking, and so then Prabhupada climbed up the stairs onto the stage. There was only his Vyasas, because they cleared the stage just as Prabhupada reached the bottom and finished that song. And then they zoomed off the stage, they turned on the proper stage lights, and then Srila Prabhupada came up and sat on his Vyasasana. And only one devotee was up there with him, Pradumna, who was his Sanskrit secretary. So then they had the microphone. Srila Prabhupada had a microphone, and Pradumna also had a microphone. So, this kind of, the ringing in the atmosphere and just, that kind of music does something to your brain, heavy metal or whatever you want to call it. So Srila Prabhupada did something interesting. And there were a lot of students who were sitting like in the front rows. They had like 3 sections, you know, and we were in the middle section. And so Srila Prabhupada told Pradyumna to recite the shloka. Guess which shloka from Bhagavad Gita? Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyati. You know the meaning of that sloka? This is the shloka that tells that the embodied soul, it's like one of Krishna's first instructions in the 2nd chapter. Just as he is passing in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, similarly the soul also passes into another body at the time of death. But the self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change of bodies. So Prabhupada had him chant that verse. When he finished, Prabhupada said, again. And he chanted it again. Then Prabhupada said, again. And he chanted it again. At least 10 or 12 times. And I kind of understood why Prabhupada did that. Because, you know, the mood of that music, so-called music and sound, was not favorable for what Prabhupada was about to give. Yeah, clear the air, purify, you know. So finally, then he had him read the shloka in English. I don't remember if he read the purport or not, but Srila Prabhupada, then he began to lecture. And it was a really, you know, so beautiful the way that Srila Prabhupada presented our philosophy to completely new people who were sitting there. And I remember, because I was looking across to each side at the different students just to see their reaction. And there was one student right in the front row looking up at the Prabhupada on the stage. And he was like leaning forward. And he was like, just like completely taking it all in. His wife was sitting next to him. They were both like that. Guess what happened after that? They drove back to Chicago Temple and became devotees with us. Yeah. So what happened was, after that lecture, then they brought Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasana down into the audience level so that the devotees could now perform this whole drama up on the stage. And they had Prabhupada sitting with Anand Vyasasana in the middle, like the aisle, you know, and we're all sitting around him, you know. And so they began this drama, this play. It was the story about a ordinary person in this world meeting a devotee and hearing about Krishna. And the whole story was showing how that devotee gradually evolved by chanting Hare Krishna to the point where now he wanted to, you know, give up his family life or whatever, his normal, usual life, and become a devotee, move into the temple. In those days, everybody moved into the temples, you know. So, and you know, they had scenes that they had composed to depict how that devotee had to go through different challenges from his friends. So then they showed the devotee, who's becoming a devotee, they showed him coming to his friends like he usually did to their parties. And there they were, up on the stage, And this is their Prabhupada's disciples, and they're all dressed in regular clothing of that time, you know, and they're all like dancing and singing up on the stage. We're looking at Prabhupada. Prabhupada was smiling. He was amused, you know. So Prabhupada, he didn't stay until the very end. Because it was a bit long. It was like more than a half an hour long. But I remember Prabhupada said something aloud, something in regards to the devotees, because they showed the devotees like taking intoxication, you know, in the party. And Prabhupada made some kind of comment. I can't remember what it was. But it was a joking comment, you know. Like, oh, now he's not interested anymore. Because he's come to Krishna, so he's not interested. Something like that. So that was my experience being with Prabhupada that year in 1972. And I actually was with Srila Prabhupada over that period of 7 years, from the time that I joined in 1970 until 1977, when Srila Prabhupada departed here in Vrindavan. And the first time that I saw Srila Prabhupada was in Detroit, because when I joined the movement, I joined there at the Detroit Temple, because I was from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You know where that is? No. Yeah? Just near Chicago, not far from Chicago. That's where I was born and brought up. And so that Detroit temple, where Bhagavan Prabhu, the Bhagavan Das Prabhu, he started that temple with Krishna Bhamini, his wife, and then Vaishnava Das was born, the first child. You probably know their children, right? Manjari, the mother. The sister of Vaishnava, and then Gauravani. Those, yeah. And, yeah, she's the granddaughter, right. Manjari's, yeah. Manjari's daughter. So, but the way that the devotees were preaching at that time, they were going directly into these big, huge rock festivals, like Woodstock, you know, like those famous. And there were many smaller scale. Woodstock was gigantic, 500,000 people. But, you know, so I went with one of my friends after graduating from high school. Then I went hitchhiking to these festivals in a couple of different states: Wisconsin, Illinois, Wisconsin, New York, and then what's it called? Forgetting the name of the state. Somewhere around where Maine is, those New England states. I'll remember in a minute. So anyway, they were going to those festivals and they were preaching. And so when I came to the first festival was down in Illinois. And that's where I saw the first devotee. This devotee was standing at a distance. I was there with a few of my friends from high school. And it was like a 3-day festival. Outdoors, everybody just slept in sleeping bags on the ground and like that. And there were a few thousand people there, probably 10,000 at least. So we were all waiting for the music to begin. We were waiting for the music to start. They were setting up the speakers and on the stage, probably around like 10 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And so then everybody's just sitting on blankets and they're in their little groups, and I'm sitting there with a few friends, and we're just kind of like looking around, at everything and all the people. And all of a sudden, off in the distance, like way down at the end of this, it was about that far maybe, could have been like 30 or 40 meters, you know. Suddenly I see this person with a shaved head and wearing orange-colored robes. And I was wondering, what is that? Because everybody back then, you know, it was the hippie era. Everyone was growing their hair long, you know. Nobody shaved their heads. Now it's a big, huge fashion, you know. Even the richest people in the world shave their heads, men, you know. Like the guy who owns Google, forget his name, you know. So, but anyway, I was spellbound when I saw him. Something inside of me was telling me, you have to talk to him. You have to see him. But I was a little bit shy to get up and go over, and but I was watching him, and my friends were preoccupied, you know. And so I'm looking and looking, and I see that he's carrying something in his arms. And he's looking at the people who are sitting on the ground and talking with them and exchanging things. So I watch him, and I'm thinking, I hope he comes over. And gradually he kind of like a little bit weaves his way, gets closer, 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 and all of a sudden he's standing right there, looking down at me, and I'm sitting there looking up at him. And he could see that I was very interested, what he's doing. And so I said to him, I said, what is this? Why are you dressed like this? You know, and what is this? And then he hands me a magazine, which was a Back to Godhead magazine, with the beautiful painting of Radha and Krishna sitting on a swing. The original one, done by Devahuti, Prabhupada's very early lady disciple, who was older than most of us. Excellent artist she was, from LA. She lived there in the LA temple. But she painted this painting, which was very colorful, very artistically beautiful, with lotus flowers and all of that. And I was a very avid, avid art appreciator. And there were so many new types of art that were coming in those days. I had that bent, that artistic bent. So as he's talking to me, and I'm talking with him, and I say, so what is this? And I'm holding the magazine in my hands. And he says, we are practicing bhakti yoga. And I said, oh, yoga. Yoga, I know about yoga, because the previous year I had bought a book from a bookshop on Hatha Yoga, which showed the pictures, how to do all the different asanas, how to do the pranayam, all of that. So, and because I had read the book and I was very serious about it, so I was thinking that, this book is telling at the end of the book, after it's taught you all the different Hatha Yoga, asanas, and then it began pranayam, and then it was saying that those who go to higher levels of mastering this art of pranayam, their consciousness becomes exalted. They experience exalted states of consciousness. So I was really curious to know about that book, because even a couple of years before that, I had gotten the Hare Krishna mantra on a mantra card from a friend who went to Toronto and met a devotee girl on the streets, and this is 1970, and she gave him a card which is an invitation to the Sunday feast. But on the other side of the card, it said the following words. Please chant this transcendental sound vibration. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and your life will be sublime. That's what it said. And because I had already heard the two words Hare Krishna, had no idea of the meaning, because the Beatles sang it on one of their songs, the word Hare Krishna. So when I saw the mantra card, I said, wow, this is what the Beatles were singing in their song. And it says it's a transcendental sound vibration. I had read Maharishi's Transcendental Meditation book. It didn't attract me that much, but I was interested in Indian thought. Ravi Shankar, his sitar music, all of that was in vogue in those days. So I became very excited that this is a transcendental sound vibration. And if you chant this, because they're saying, please chant this transcendental sound, and your life will be sublime. And so then I said to my friend, I says, wow, this is it. This is the magic, sound vibration. We should chant it. We should experiment. And then he said to me, no, I'm not going to do that. I said, why not? It says right here, if you just chant these words, your life becomes sublime, and it's a transcendental sound. He says, no, I'm not going to do that. You do it. You try it, and you tell me what happens. So I started singing. I used to play guitar and sing in my room, in my bedroom. And I started singing the mantra. I had no understanding of the meaning of the words, nothing. Only I knew it's a transcendental sound vibration. So before I graduated and before I went to these festivals, I'd already been chanting for some weeks. And I had come to the conclusion that I need to meet someone who knows about this, who can teach me about this, the meaning and exactly how to chant like that. So here I am. Krishna places me at this festival, and there's a devotee. So the devotee comes over to me and hands me that magazine, and I say to him, why are you dressed like this? And he says, oh, we're practicing bhakti yoga. And then I said, oh, yoga. I know about yoga. I read my yoga book, and can you tell me, does that yoga stuff, does it really work? Does it work? In other words, what I was asking him is, what I read at the end of that book, did you go into a higher state of consciousness? Then he said to me, this devotee, I didn't see him till like 30 years later, but his identical twin brother, I knew him quite well after I joined the temple. They were from Buffalo, New York, the same city where Bhagavan and Krishna Bhamani and all them, they joined the movement from hearing the lectures of Rupanuga Prabhu, who opened up a class in the university, and he got it accepted by the university, accredited course. So when I asked him, does that stuff really work, what you're doing? And he says, oh yes, it really works, let me tell you. And he was so beaming bright, red cheeks, and and he said, I've only been chanting this Hare Krishna, he mentioned that then, chanting Hare Krishna for the last 2 months. But before that, I was addicted to heroin. I was a heroin addict. But now, I've completely given it up. I have no more cravings. And so that was his answer. Does that stuff really work? And I says, really? Wow, amazing. So he was confirming what I was thinking about this transcendental sound vibration, this mantra. So then when he handed me the magazine, and he also handed me another one, smaller, Krishna the Reservoir of Pleasure. And I began to look at these pictures of Krishna. I had no idea who it is, nothing. So then I said to him, I was just spellbound actually. The picture of Radha and Krishna on the swing, and Radharani's holding the flute. And they're both sitting together on the swing. And there's swans and lotus flowers, Yamuna River. There's like a big halo around them. And I said, well, I think this may be the most beautiful picture I've ever seen. I actually told him that. And I meant it. Something about that. First time I'm ever seeing Krishna in this life. So then, when I said that to him, you know, this is the most beautiful picture I've ever seen. You know what he said to me? He said, yes. And that's how your heart is. Now, in those days, I would not have understood, you know. But because I was going in that direction, Krishna made him say something like that just suddenly press the switch on, you know? And I had some kind of very deep inner experience at that moment, like a confirmation, you know? Yes, yes, it's true. That's how your heart is. That beauty is inside of you. I mean, I had no idea that I'm not this body or anything like that at that point. So anyway, that's the beginning of my journey in Krishna consciousness in this life with devotees. But I saw them repeatedly 4 more times or 3 more times in these different states. Connecticut, in the state of Connecticut. That was the final festival. And by that time I had met the devotees at each festival. They were there. I still didn't know who they are, what they do, you know. Some of them had hair, some of them were shaven-headed, you know. But they were mostly all wearing dhotis, at least, you know. And I was thinking, how these people are amazing. These people are so amazing. Every time I meet them, they're telling these lofty, very deep philosophical concepts, you know. So I had an experience chanting Mahamantra as we were traveling. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but it convinced me that this Mahamantra is very powerful. And so I went to the first devotee chanting session. I did see them performing Nam Samkirtan in a stadium. They had a rock concert in the stadium. And they came in, and this was in New York City, Randall Island. And they came in marching, and there must have been 50 devotees. And they were playing kartals, mridanga, and they were dancing and singing, and I'm looking at them. They all looked so blissful. They all looked so pure. You know, I was really attracted. And so I just kept watching them. And then what they did, like they used to do, they began to dance and sing, and they made a big circle, like holding hands. And then a lot of the hippies, they also stood up and held hands with the devotees and all of that. So then, so at that festival they distributed prasadam. And I got my first plate of prasadam from the devotees at that time. And you know who gave me that plate of prasadam? They had a line and they had pots. Bhagwat, who's now Bhagwat Maharaj. Yep. He had joined 2-3 months before me there in New York. And I asked him a question. I says, "Can I ask you a question?" "Yeah." He said, "You know, I see you people as you're singing and dancing and you're chanting this Hare Krishna. But what is it that you're experiencing?" So then he said, "Let me ask you a question." He says, "Have you ever experienced a joy that is so intense that you just break down weeping and crying?" I said, "No, I can't say that I have." He says, "Well, that's what it's like to chant Hare Krishna." And I took the plate and like hypnotized, and I went and sat and I started taking prasadam and thinking about that. So I had all these exchanges with the devotees. But finally, Krishna made it clear that you got to go and be with them. You have to go and live with them. They're inviting you to live with them in their temple. Go and do it. So then I did. And that was August 3rd, 1970. I know the exact date because my birthday, which is August 13th, was 10 days later after I moved into the temple. But there was no celebration of in those days, devotees never celebrated their birthdays. You know that? Nobody celebrated their own birthdays. We never even thought about our birthdays. We never thought about it. Yeah? Because we were so absorbed in Krishna. So anyway, you know, that first year in Krishna consciousness, I completely fell in love with Srila Prabhupada. And like I told you yesterday, he actually became my real father. I completely left and forgot my family connections. Prabhupada, he became my father. And, you know, in that first year, we would have so many internal experiences meeting Prabhupada, even though we haven't met him yet physically, because as I said, he left America to go to India, and he wasn't traveling, he was just staying in India. And a lot of us who were newly joined, we didn't yet get the chance to see Prabhupada, but a lot of our God brothers and God sisters, they had seen. Like most of them were just the devotees for like 6 months, 1 year, like 1 year and a half. That's the most of the devotees. Even Bhagavan, and they, you know, they hadn't been for very long. But you know, I was sent to this big, huge city, and I was literally just turned 18 years of age, and I'm with 3-4 other devotees, and we go out on the streets every single day in the smack dab center of Chicago City, where all the skyscrapers are all around you, you know, and they have these wide sidewalks, and that corner, the street corner, was the street corner of State Street, which is like the main street. It runs parallel to the lake there in Chicago. And then the other street was Madison Street. And on that corner, there was a big, huge department store. Like they used to have these multi-floored department stores. They still have them in shopping malls here and there. And we would stand on that very street corner. That was our place. Every day for 6 hours a day. 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon. And we would chant and dance. And we would also try to distribute some magazines, some books. We weren't so good at it in those days, but people would stop and watch us. And then we would approach them with the books. So this went on month after month after month, all the way through the winter. And Chicago has some of the meanest winters because it's called the Windy City. The way the wind comes off of the lake at the bottom of Lake Michigan. Very sharp winds and cold. So we We did our Samkirtan despite any condition, without fail, 6 days a week, and then on the 7th day, then we had the Sunday feast. So just a small storefront temple with small Jagannath deities, small, about this size. Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. And we fell in love with those deities, because we would come back from our 6 hours of chanting. We would only take the train. We would walk 2 blocks, get on the train. They had what they called the L train, which means the elevated train, and then the train went underground and came up in the middle of the city and underground, and then we walked up the stairs. We would start chanting even in the subway. And, we stayed there come rain, come shine, coldest weather, hottest weather, whatever. And we were there on that street corner. So, but what were we meditating on? Because 3 of my godbrothers they also hadn't met Prabhupada yet. Later on, they took sannyas from him. And they became Paramahansa Swami and Paribrajakacharya Swami. Paramahansa Swami traveled with Prabhupada as his secretary for a while, in the 75, 76, like that time. But finally we got the message. Prabhupada has returned from India. And he's on the West Coast, he's in LA, and then they're going to have the San Francisco Ratha Yatra, and then Srila Prabhupada is going to come to Detroit. Bhagavan arranged to send tickets for Prabhupada to come to Detroit. It's in the book of Shama Sundar. So now we were told by our temple president, I don't know if you ever met him, Bahulasva? No, okay. He left his body recently from cancer, but he was very wonderful. All of us, the godbrothers, we know him quite well. But he was our temple president, and he had a very close relationship with Prabhupada, because he was the Berkeley temple president before he was sent to Chicago to save the sinking ship of the temple. And so he told to me and my 2 godbrothers that we should sit down and we should write our letters of requesting Srila Prabhupada to accept us as his disciples and give us initiation. So I remember that day, getting a few pieces of paper, sitting down in a quiet place and writing my letter. And you know what my mood was? This was a letter of stating my case, like why he should accept me. Because I actually thought that there may be a chance that Prabhupada won't accept me as a disciple. And so I set about writing 4 pages to Srila Prabhupada, describing how and why Srila Prabhupada, I need him to accept me. And I described philosophically, I've been in this material world for millions of lives. Now I finally come to the floated up on the shore at your divine lotus feet. And I said so many things. So we sent off our letters, and then our temple president told us, now each of you should hitchhike, because we had no vehicle, we had no money. So just hitchhike up to Detroit. It's not far from Chicago. And so I went with my godbrother, who became Paribrajakacharya Swami later on. And we arrived at the Detroit temple. And there was so much hustle and bustle going on. All the devotees were painting all the walls. the ladies were doing, like with stencils, flower decorations going up the stairway on the wall, decorating everything. So when we arrived, immediately we went to the Bhagavan and his office, and he says, "Oh, your letters have come. Your letters from Srila Prabhupada have come." I'm going to finish in just a few minutes now. "Your letters have come." And we became very excited, and he handed us our individual letters. They came in one envelope, but they were separate letters from Prabhupada, addressing us by our names and everything. And not only that, along with the letters, they had sent our japa mala, which had been chanted on by Prabhupada, Tulsi beads. Yes, from India. Because Prabhupada had just returned from India. And during the first year, I was just, they had bead stores, bead shops, and we just bought round wooden beads and strung our own japa malas. And that's what I chanted on for the first year. So anyway, Srila Prabhupada, when I sat down to open up my letter, you can imagine I was quite concerned. What will be Prabhupada's response, And I opened up the letter. You can also find my letter from Prabhupada. It's in the folio. And Prabhupada said, "My dear Jeffrey, I have received your letter dated such and such. And with the recommendation of both Bahulasva and Bhagavan Prabhus, I gladly consent to accept you as my duly initiated disciple." And when I read those words, so then he said, "I can see from your letter that you are a very sincere boy, and you have been chanting your rounds regularly, going for street Samkirtan, reading our books, like this." So he said, "I have given you the name Urukrama Das Brahmachari. Urukrama is a name of Krishna, and it means one whose activities are glorious. Urukrama." And then he said, "My request to you is that you should stay there in Chicago and help to make our Chicago center a grand success." Because we were just in a little storefront, and we didn't even have enough money to pay the rent, and So he said, "You have mentioned in your letter that you are experiencing some difficulty." Because I expressed to Prabhupada, I had heard one of the verses of Manasiksha. They had some little bits of translation of that way back then. And it's talking about, "Oh, my dear brother mind, just follow my instruction," like this. So I said to Prabhupada, "I'm experiencing some difficulty, like my mind is trying to distract me," like this. So then Srila Prabhupada, he addressed that. He said, "You say in your letter that you are experiencing some difficulty. But that is Krishna's mercy upon you, to make you turn to Him more and more." And those words were the guiding light of my entire life. Because it became clear, I didn't understand philosophically, but now I began to understand. Tatenukampam susamikshamano, Krishna's mercy is always coming. in the form of difficulty or whatever form and shape. But it's His mercy. And what is He trying to do? He's trying to draw us toward Him, so that in times of difficulty we turn to Him. We turn to Him, and we depend on Him, and pray to Him, you know. So, literally, 2 days after, now all the devotees who had come for Prabhupada's 3-day festival in Detroit, we all got into vehicles and went to the airport. Did you ever hear my story of meeting Prabhupada at the airport for the first time in Detroit? So, you know, Prabhupada had been gone almost a year. And all the devotees who joined the movement during that 1 year, they're all waiting for Prabhupada. Prabhupada even wasn't giving initiations until he returned back. So when Srila Prabhupada returned back, and he flew to Detroit, there were about 200 devotees waiting there in the airport in Detroit. 200 devotees, and we were doing kirtan. And we're waiting with our hearts beating. And the passengers start coming off of the plane, and you know that long hallway thing that's like an accordion, they connect it from the plane to the actual boarding gate. So we came off, or Prabhupada came off the plane, but before he came out the doorway, where we were all sitting waiting right there in the reception area, and you know, all the passengers who were not devotees, they came out of and they saw all of us, you know, and they was quite surprised, what's going on? So after a whole bunch of passengers came off, then a devotee came out who had traveled with Prabhupada from LA on the plane. And he looked at all of us, and he said, Prabhupada's coming now. So now was that moment. We were just sitting there chanting, and suddenly Prabhupada appears in the doorway. And he looked so beautiful. So beautiful. Even how he was dressed was like Lord Nityananda or something, you know. The devotees had given him, he just came from India, these expensive orange silk, you know, cloth for his sannyas vesh, and he had a golden, like light colored, almost like sari cloth, a chadar around his shoulders. He had, you know, a couple of rings on his fingers. Then he had his cane that was like, you know, wooden with a silver top, like ornate silver top. And Prabhupada stood there looking at us. And when we saw Prabhupada, our hearts just flooded, and our eyes flooded with tears, you know. And Prabhupada just walked forward, step by step, looking at all of us. Then he was garlanded by Kirtanananda Swami, and he embraced him, and Kirtanananda just broke down weeping like a little child. Then he took a few more steps, and Bhagavan came and garlanded him, and then Prabhupada embraced him, and then he began weeping like a little child. Everyone there was just overwhelmed. So, you know, those first moments of seeing Prabhupada, then they brought him to the Vyasasan, because the airport allowed him to bring his Vyasasan into the airport so that he could sit and speak something in case there were any journalists there or whatever. So this is the first time I'm getting to hear him speak. And I'm sitting like, say for example, Prabhupada's sitting on his Vyasasan facing this direction. And I'm sitting like just here, seeing his side view of his head, you know. And I'm watching Srila Prabhupada, and he very short, not more than 10 minutes Prabhupada spoke. And then Prabhupada, the first thing that he said, I have just now come from Moscow. And I was very surprised, because my grandfather is Russian. So I have some identification with Russia. But this is the communist period, And we didn't know it, but Prabhupada actually went to communist Russia, made a devotee, initiated him, and that devotee spread Krishna consciousness all over Russia. And it's in that book upstairs. It's in that volume. Because on their way from India to America, Prabhupada stopped for, I think it was 5 days in Moscow. And the whole story is narrated there by Shyamasundar, his Moscow visit. Yeah, that devotee's name was Ananta Shanti. He left his body many years ago, but he actually came to see Gurudev also in Moscow when Gurudev came for his, I think, his second festival in the year 2001. So Prabhupada said that, and then he told something. Oh yeah, I remember. He told about the professor who had invited him. You know his name? Yes, Kotovsky. Professor Kotovsky. There's some dialogue in Shyamasundar's book, because Prabhupada went to meet him. And in the book, you can really understand that Professor Kotovsky cannot follow the philosophical points that Prabhupada's trying to make. So you know what Prabhupada said as he's sitting on the Vyasasan there? He said, I just went to Moscow, and there I was invited by one professor of, Indian religion, something like that. Professor Kotovsky, he said his name. But then the next thing he said was, this big professor, although he is very highly educated, and he also is a scholar and knows about Vedic literatures, but when I spoke to him, I could understand that he does not know even the most simple philosophical point. And then Prabhupada said, with his eyes closed, I am not this body. That's the first time we're hearing Prabhupada saying that. We have been telling this in our preaching for the whole year. You're not this body, you're not this body, But now we're seeing a person who has fully realized. So that was very short. Then we accompanied Prabhupada as he walked through the airport hallways, and they had his car waiting outside. And Prabhupada got in his car, and then he zoomed off, and we all zoomed back to the temple. And so Prabhupada was brought to a devotee's house, not to the temple house that we had at that time. That devotee's name, he lives near Eugene, Oregon. Prabhupada disciple, my godbrother. And his name is Prabhanu. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Musician, actually. Musician, Prabhanu. And very special, very intelligent devotee. I visited him up there in his house a number of times. That he was a new devotee at that time. I was already a devotee for 1 year, but he was very, very new devotee, like only a few weeks. But they needed a place for hosting Srila Prabhupada. So he stepped forward and offered his grandmother's house, which was a very big, nice palatial house. And the grandmother would allow Prabhupada to stay there. She would stay in another house, So he got a lot of association in those 3 days with Prabhupada in that visit. But what Prabhupada gave in those 3 days, absolutely life-changing. We saw him morning and evening. He came to the temple and gave lectures. So in this way, when Prabhupada left the Detroit airport to fly again onwards on his tour, we were all like leaning up against the glass windows and just watching, because you could just watch right there the airplane taxiing down and then taking off. And it was like, I don't know, I can't really use this comparison, but like the gopis seeing Krishna on the chariot of Akrura, you know? So Srila Prabhupada toured everywhere for 12 years, all over the world. And this was really the beginning of his major touring. You know, gradually at more temples, temples in different continents. And while he was touring, what did he also give? He gave the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the middle of the night, waking up every night, translating his books, giving his Bhaktivedanta purports. Also, he gave the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita. And also, he gave Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and parts of Chaitanya Charitamrita in the form of teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And Srila Prabhupada had, the estimate that I've heard is about 7,000 disciples around the world. But according to what we heard, at the time when Prabhupada departed, about 3,000 or 3,500 disciples were actually active in the movement, living in the temples, or they were householders and they're regularly coming almost every day to the temples at the time when Prabhupada went into Samadhi. So, you know, Srila Prabhupada, what he had to go through, that story will be told for thousands of years. What Srila Prabhupada had to tolerate, especially in his first 1 year, you know, when he didn't really have a fixed place of residence, and finally they got the storefront for him after a year of struggling through the winter in New York, you know, and Srila Prabhupada just, you know, he performed such a miracle. Gurudev used to say that, you know, that Swamiji performed a miracle. And all he did was he went into the park with his kartals and chanted Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, but he had such strong faith in Hari Nam. So, you know, we could go on and on about Srila Prabhupada's glories. There's so much to tell, so many adventures, you know, so many victories. But you'll have to read the books of the devotees who lived with Prabhupada while all this was taking place. Especially this book of Shama Sundar Prabhu, which is 3 volumes. And it's titled Chasing Rhinos with the Swami. And he was one of the first disciples to join in San Francisco. And he was a personal friend of Mukunda. They were college friends. But Mukunda had come from New York on his way to India. You know that? You read his book, you said, right? Yeah, he decided he and his wife wanted to go to India. They still hadn't quite realized who Prabhupada is and what he's giving. But they had some attachment for him. He had initiated them. He had married them. And now they decided to go to India. So when they were leaving and they were saying goodbye to Prabhupada, you can imagine how Prabhupada must have felt, you know. But Prabhupada did not show any of that kind of mood to them. But he said, if you have a chance on your way, try to start one temple. So you know what happened? Krishna made it happen. They had already started, that New York temple. And Mukunda and his wife had been with Prabhupada for maybe 4 months, and now they want to go off to India. But before they would leave, they wanted to visit, because they're I don't know whether they were actually going to fly or take a ship there. I don't know. He didn't mention that in his book. But, very few people were flying back in those days. And so then Mukunda describes, and his wife Janaki, who is the sister of who? Jamuna. Jamuna's sister. Yep, they're sisters. And so, and she had come to the wedding, Yamuna. In her book, she describes her in her own book, how she met Prabhupada in the kitchen of the 26 Second Avenue apartment. And Prabhupada immediately, the first thing he said to her was, "Do you know how to make a semi-wet type of dough?" She says, "Well, actually, yes, I do." She had some baking experience. So Prabhupada engaged her for the next 5-6 hours. Prabhupada cooked the entire wedding feast, and she's watching him going in and out of the kitchen, carrying these big, huge pots, setting them down, Prabhupada cooked enough for at least like 150 people. So that was her first meeting. So she's the sister of Janaki, and Janaki and Mukunda are now in northern Oregon meeting his college friend Shama Sundar, who is named Samuel Spearstra. And that's like his home state, And then Shama Sundar has his girlfriend with him, who later became Malati. And so the two couples and Yamuna came up there and joined those few days with them, 2-3 days, with her boyfriend, who ended up being Guru Das. And eventually it was those 3 couples who started the San Francisco temple. They launched the whole thing there and brought Prabhupada. And then after some short time, they decided that we need to go to England and open it up. And they're the ones that did that, those 3 couples. They each have their own books. Very worthwhile to read each one of their books. Guru Das has his book. Yamuna has her book. I think her book is a double volume set. Mukunda has his book called Happiness on Second Avenue. Or Miracle on Second Avenue, yeah. No, the video is called Happiness on Second Avenue. The first black and white video. So these early devotees, they were directly sent by Krishna. They had certain characteristics, certain personalities. It's just exactly what was needed for the time. And they fell in love with Prabhupada. And they did this service. So I'm just, I came 4 years after, But the movement, when I joined, was still very small. And the estimate of the number of devotees initiated by Prabhupada was probably only 300 devotees at that point. Yeah. Something like that. Because they only had a very limited number of temples and a very limited number of devotees in the temples. So I kind of estimated at one time, 300-400 maximum devotees in the whole Hare Krishna movement. So Shama Sundar did a really good job in conveying, you know, his experience so vividly. So it was like living, breathing, reading his book and hearing and how he's expressing everything. So, but he used this title because it came from Prabhupada. Prabhupada told the story about trying to hunt for rhinoceros. So, you know, everyone knows, any hunter knows very well that it's almost impossible to catch a rhinoceros. You know, they go on these safaris. The rhinoceros, who has the big, huge horn right in the middle of its pointy and gigantic. Its skin is like armor, you know. And if that rhinoceros is running toward you, you better find shelter somewhere. So, but Srila Prabhupada told to Shama Sundar that, yes, that when somebody tries to hunt after a rhinoceros, right? They try to hunt a rhinoceros. Then if the person fails, they are not able to succeed in catching the rhinoceros, huh? But everyone will say, oh, it's almost impossible. Like everybody will say, look, to even try to do that is glorious, right? But if the person actually catches the rhinoceros, then they will say, oh, how amazing! He actually hunted and caught the rhinoceros. So Prabhupada said, this is like our mission, our movement. We are not afraid to try to do the impossible. If we succeed, everybody will say, oh, they tried to do the impossible, no harm. But if we don't succeed. But if we succeed, they'll say, oh, amazing, amazing. That's why he named his book, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami. Because it was such an adventure. And he's the perfect person, because he talks about his own self in the beginning of the book. You know, his nature of always being an adventure seeker, you know. It's like inbred inside of him. So he became Prabhupada's secretary, traveled with him for a few years also, and it's there in his books. So today we heard something about Srila Prabhupada. We also heard about the powerful effect that I experienced in coming in contact with Srila Prabhupada's devotees first. They were carrying potency because they were trying to execute Srila Prabhupada's order to go out and preach and chant Harinam publicly and distribute his books. So I had my golden experience at that time, and this is 54 years later, and I've had such an incredible life of association with 3 Mahabhagavats, my 3 gurus. But Prabhupada is always my main guru. Gurudev also told me, you should always know Swamiji is your main guru. He didn't like if we would not be still maintaining that unique relationship with Prabhupada. He wanted that. So, on this day, we're going to do our Guru Puja to Srila Prabhupada's picture here. And we're going to chant Shri Guru Charana Padma. I will offer the artik. You can sing the song. And all the devotees will offer flower petals. And is 1 garland or more? 1 garland. Yeah, so in 1 garland. Then after the kirtan is finished, then we will go upstairs and we will have prasadam. So Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Shri Nanda Utsav Mahamahotsava ki jai. Jai Shri Nanda Maharaj ki jai. Mother Yashoda ki jai. Dauji Baiya ki jai. Krishna Kanaiya ki jai. Brijbasi Gan ki jai. Gop Gopi Go Gan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. So everyone can stand and come over here. Well, everything's already up here, so